Last week, the latest film in the MonsterVerse, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, dropped in theaters, so here's my ranking of all 5 MonsterVerse movies. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk about a bunch of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share your ranking of the 5 MonsterVerse movies over on my channel. I have more rankings like this. Check those out once this video is over. And if you enjoy this video, click the like button and be sure to subscribe because that really does help a lot. With that said, let's just get straight into the ranking. Easily in last place for me, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, I saw this one in the theater when it first came out when I was like, 9? And so, there's a certain amount of nostalgia when it comes to some of these movies, especially the ones that I saw in the theater growing up back in elementary school. But on rewatch, this is a film that simply does not work for me. On the positive side, in certain ways and elements, I think it improves upon the 2014 version. Whether you're talking about just Godzilla having more screen time in here, and the action sequences here are more present in this one than they are in the 2014 Godzilla. And I'd say that's a big, gigantic improvement, and it makes this movie still kind of watchable. But for me, the central plot and human characters especially, these are the absolute worst human characters in the entire franchise. This franchise has always had the problem of having bland and forgettable human characters. Here, some of them are just straight up unlikable, especially Vera Farmiga's character, who is just so frustrating throughout the entire film. And she just comes out off as this unlikable character and her motivations for her actions are pretty stupid, as she's trying to unleash monsters to kill all humans because she thinks the monsters will make the earth cleaner. That's just stupid. And by the end of it, it has attempts at these emotional sequences where she sacrifices herself and it wants you to feel emotional. There are attempts at doing that, but they utterly fail here. It's still watchable, it's still entertaining, you still get a big gigantic showdown between Godzilla and Ghidorah by the end of the film, but overall, I would say, especially on rewatch, this is easily my least favorite of the MonsterVerse. Number 4, Godzilla 2014, and this is, to be fair, there's a pretty big gap here from King of the Monsters to Godzilla 2014. I enjoy Godzilla 2014, and there's a lot for me to really enjoy here. It's directed by Gareth Edwards, the guy that went on to direct Rogue One and The Creator, and he's good with sci-fi action sequences when they do happen in this movie. The finale is pretty cool, and when it comes to just the aesthetic and vibe Gareth Edwards goes for here, it's probably the most serious of the MonsterVerse films, as it's delving into the reality that is monsters appearing on Earth, and it just feels a little bit more grounded than the rest of the MonsterVerse. But as an overall experience, as good as the tone and aesthetic and direction are, this movie just makes some big missteps. For one, Godzilla, he has some wasted screen time, where there are going to be a few action sequences that are awesome where you think they're going to happen. Just as an action sequence is about to happen, they cut to a news broadcast.
Why would we do that?
And that happens constantly throughout the entire film. Also, much like all these other films, of course, you don't really care about the main characters. And here I think there could have been something interesting. You get some emotion in the beginning and middle with the Bryan Cranston character and his backstory and what they do with his character, but they don't do anything interesting with that beyond it. Instead of being this character journey, it ends up being this different guy, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, that we're following around, and he's not nearly as compelling or interesting. So I think this movie had all the right ingredients to be a great Godzilla movie, but with some missteps here, I can only just see the potential of what it could have been. And so this one is one that, while I still enjoy, I've never found it as good as it should be. In third place, Kong Skull Island. Of all the movies in the MonsterVerse, this is probably the one I have the most nostalgia for. This is one that came out back in 2017. I was a dumb kid in elementary school. I saw it in the theater opening day when it came out. And so there's a certain amount of nostalgia that comes for me whenever I rewatch this movie, and I used to go bananas for it back when I was a little kid. As for the movie itself, I think there's still a lot to love here. I enjoy this one significantly more than both Godzilla movies. It has a vibe and a feeling that just takes you back to the 70s. With the setting, the music, the production, it all just feels very different from the modern day, as a movie set in the 70s should. You also, I think, just get the best cast of all these MonsterVerse movies. Tom Hiddleston is in here, John Goodman, Brie Larson, Samuel L. Jackson, John C. Reilly, a pretty stacked cast in this film. And the action in this movie, just as the MonsterVerse is good at doing, is still just some really immaculate action. And so as much nostalgia as I had for this movie, much like 2014, I think it takes a couple small missteps where it could have been higher up on this list. The skull crawlers that they established at Skull Island, I didn't find all that interesting of opponents for Kong to face. And every time I think about this movie, I kind of just forget that they exist unless I rewatch this movie. I remember those action sequences where Kong is like beating down helicopters, but I don't really remember these skull crawler things. Likewise, there's also some silly death sequences. Like, I was laughing out loud in the theater watching this when there's a sequence where the guy holds some grenades out at a skull crawler and he just gets smacked away and he blows himself up. So he thinks he's gonna sacrifice himself, but he just dies for no reason. If it hadn't made those silly little missteps, it probably would have been higher up. But this is a movie that I still find entertaining, and I find myself rewatching from time to time, honestly. Our runner-up is Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. This film fully embraces what the MonsterVerse is good at doing. Big gigantic action sequences, ridiculous sequences, and it just builds a lot on the mythology of the universe. It delivers all the ridiculousness it needs to through CGI action sequences with zero gravity, going to different cities and traveling in Hollow Earth and portals and stuff like that. It delivers all that ridiculous stuff that you want a movie in the MonsterVerse to deliver, but it also just builds atop of the mythology. It dives into Hollow Earth and sets up this new empire, this lore about monsters and tribes underground. It builds more to the universe than I thought it was going to. And the setting of Hollow Earth itself I found more interesting than just setting at a city with destruction or anything or something like that. I found the setting of Hollow Earth a lot more interesting because there's a lot more opportunities for Kong to fight with creatures. You get Kong and this little Donkey Kong.
Is that a mini Kong?
Who they kind of bond throughout the entire film. It's a lot of fun if you know what to expect. Now, this film's not going to be for everybody. This, of all 5 films on this list, might be the thinnest on plot and characters. It's pretty thin on character arcs, pretty thin on plot. You just want all the ridiculousness. Now, I went to see this with my brother and my dad. My dad hated watching this movie because it was just a bit too ridiculous. But if you go in expecting that, you will probably have a lot of fun like I did. The entertainment is entirely reliant on the CGI action sequences, so you have to wanting schlocky B-movie fun. I went in expecting schlocky B-movie fun, so I got what I wanted out of this one. But coming in first place for me, Godzilla vs. Kong. And to me, I just think that this is the best version of what the MonsterVerse is good at doing. It takes the best elements of the skills that this franchise does, and it does the best of it. It has the best action, the best humor. I don't know about the best characters, but it just has some fantastic action sequences that are memorable. Whether you're talking about the titular fight at Hong Kong, just some little ones at Hollow Earth, and of course, Kong and Godzilla battling Mechagodzilla. And it adds to the mythology of the universe with the discovery of Hollow Earth and how Kong ties into the lore of things. It's much more Kong-centric than Godzilla-centric, but I think they balanced two of these plot lines out really well, and they intertwined them at the end in a way that I thought was satisfying. And the characters here I found a lot more charismatic than usually in this franchise. You get this Godzilla crew with Brian Tyree Henry, the kid from Deadpool 2, and Millie Bobby Brown. And you also get our Kong group, who I found more interesting, with this deaf girl, her mother, and Alexander Skarsgård. All of them just have something to do, and some of them add a bit of levity to the mix. And so for me, of all the films of this franchise, this is the one I find myself going back to the most. This is the most entertaining of the bunch. It has the best action of the bunch. It's the most enjoyable, schlocky fun that this franchise has to offer. So this is my favorite of the MonsterVerse films. There you have it. That's my ranking of all 5 MonsterVerse films. Down below in the comment section, share your ranking of these movies over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Click the like button and be sure to subscribe because that does help a lot. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.